Yes.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Good morning, good evening. My name is Magda, and with me is Meenakshi.
Hello.
And this particular webcast is LinkedIn Live, whatever it's called, is a follow up to an EMCC session that Meenakshi and I did last week on starting a virtual coaching or mentoring practice.
Right.
So, welcome. Um, I am just going to open the chat on my LinkedIn because it'll be great to see what is happening. Um, just as a heads up to anyone who is watching this live, there is, I think, about a 30-second delay between what we say and what happens on chat. So please be patient with us if you ask a question and it doesn't get to us right away. I promise it's not us, it's LinkedIn. I'm going to pass the blame. Alrighty. Actually, let's get started.
Yep, certainly.
So last week we did a presentation, or you did a presentation, and I just kind of rode your coattails. You did a presentation on European Mentoring and Coaching Council's webinar support member series thing, and we talked about kind of principles of going virtual if you have a traditional business.
Yeah.
Do you want to give a quick kind of summation of what you think is the most important thing to think about?
Yeah, certainly. I will actually also, do you know, by the way, Magda, if you're able to share screens
I don't know. I think so. If there's a share
here?
screen option, then share your screen. I have no idea. This is new to me.
Okay. Okay. Well, apparently there is. So I'm going to try it, and then I'll also quickly go over to the LinkedIn side and see if it's showing up. So I thought it might be a good idea to just bring up a couple of slides from what we talked about last time.
Great.
So the key that we talked about was really um, um, making sure that we actually design for everyone. And so if we keep that in mind and use the concept of empathy, we actually uh, it's so much easier to think about it from that perspective. So we started with saying that. So by the way, just checking, are you able to see my screen?
Yep, so I'm able to control it. So I just put your screen up. So you do your thing.
Okay, all right. So we kind of established that, hey, virtual coaching is nothing but coaching gone digital, and that's it. So if we kind of made an attempt to demystify it, for lack of a better term, then it gives us a fresh perspective to think about it. And that was one thing that we talked about. And then, of course, we talked about how virtual coaching actually plays into the EMCC competency framework, especially on the focus that there is on understanding self and the commitment to self development, and how actually using video conferencing technology allows the coaches to do some of those pieces, to take care of some of those pieces as well, which actually, like seeing yourself and how or what your body language looks like when you're in a conversation with a client, that's not something that you can do in a face to face. So actually, video conferencing it actually has some advantages on that. Then the other thing we looked at some of the advantages, on the same along the same line of thought. We talked about the availability of session recording, the client so wishes. um, the other piece we talked about was that virtual coaching actually going virtual actually allows you to expand your market base. You're no longer limited to your geographical area, which is another cool thing as well. And we talked about how it's relatively climate positive because you're not really commuting and things like that. We also talked about client experience overall because it allows for greater flexibility, particularly for those who are in the executive coaching space and or coaching individuals that are in corporate settings. Flexibility around schedules is extremely valuable. So that's another thing that you can do because it really cuts out the time that one needs to commute, get set up, etc. So those are some things that we touched upon. And then also spent some time on the tools and technology aspects of it as well. I'll just quickly run through the slides here.
And by the way, I just posted the link in the chat of this video, but we did put up the slides on the Coacharia blog. So everyone can just hop onto that link and view the slides. All the different links that we have to resources in the slides, you can definitely click and get to those. And we will share the video to the original session in case you missed it or want to revisit something. We just don't have the video yet from EMCC. So as soon as we have it, we will update it also to that blog post that I linked to in the chat. But if you're not looking at the chat, just go to coacharia.com, COACHARYA.com/blog, and it'll be super clear which post I'm talking about. So, cool. So I'm going to just change the view quickly. I'm learning a new tool. So that's actually really funny because you and I went to this webinar as experts, and I'm using the quotes, like really big white quotes, because we're both still learning, right? Like
Yeah.
you just started your business, what, 8 months ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've gone through this for the first time, and I've been working virtually for a much longer time, but that doesn't mean that I'm an expert either, because this, for example, what we're doing right now, streaming live on LinkedIn, I did this for the first time a few weeks ago with you, actually.
Yes, I remember that.
We're like partners in crime.
Yeah.
And today we learned how to use screen share. So I think we talked about this last week, being flexible and adaptable and just trying and being okay with the fact that we're all still learning and that stuff is new. That's okay. It's new to our clients. It's new to us.
Absolutely.
I literally just learned something 5 minutes ago. So
Yeah, you bring up a good point. I think a few things. One is being authentic and being humble. I think those basic values really sort of play into this. And I constantly go back to the agile software development or product development and the use of the Scrum and Kanban frameworks, for instance. There's the basic values in that. For example, the Scrum values are courage, commitment, openness, transparency, and focus. So I think that I draw such a lot of parallel between that and the world of coaching, and in that, in what we're trying to deal with in the current scenario with the pandemic situation and everybody trying to pivot to a virtual way of working. First of all, we're all in this together, and we're all learning. Exactly to your point, and as long as we have the ability to be very humble and open about where we are, what we know, what we don't know, and admitting that we're in this together and learning together, I think that makes a big difference. Um, the other thing is the sense of personal agility. I've been actually thinking about that a lot. How Because I think that from a coach or a mentor perspective, our clients sort of take cues from us, right? So if we lead with confidence, they'll automatically have that. It's that mirroring of emotions and energy that happens when you're in a dyadic situation or interaction like this, right? Or it could be even in the concept of team coaching. So I think that we, as human beings, we tend to feed off of one another's energy levels and emotions. So I think that that plays a big role. So if we, as coaches and mentors, walk into this with confidence and with grace and saying that, well, I'm going to try this, and if it doesn't work, it's fine, we'll figure something else out. And so if we approach it that way, I think that plays a big role in how our clients will accept it as well.
totally agree. Cool beans. So now that we've recapped, the purpose of this video today, this webinar, whatever it is, was to follow up on some discussion points that came up last week, and also to address questions that came up that we didn't necessarily answer during the webinar. So we actually put together a bunch of resources and bullet points. I just translated them into a blog post that I put in the chat. So please head over to the blog post now or later, doesn't really matter, just maybe later, so we can stay here and we can chat. But we've grouped the questions into buckets that came up.
Yes.
So you'll find some answers there. We'll go through those now and just discuss them in a bit more depth. But there is a chat on LinkedIn. If you are watching this live right now, please add questions to the chat. I will be jumping back and forth between the live stream and the chat just to check if there's anything that's coming up, and we will very happily answer that on screen. And if we don't get to something, that blog post that I added a link to, that's going to stay up forever and ever. So we will update it as we think of other stuff to add, or as we get questions from you guys, because it's a good resource. It's a good place to start. So cool.
Absolutely.
Meenakshi, you're happy with that?
Yeah, it works.
Awesome. Sweet. So the big topic that came up in a lot of questions and is an evolving topic, unfortunately, is Zoom.
Yeah.
To Zoom or not to Zoom?
Yes.
And it's so funny how quickly the world is changing right now. And it cracks me up, during March when all of this COVID stuff was unfolding, my favorite posts on Twitter, etc., were March has been the longest decade of our lives and things like that. Because honestly, like, it feels like it's going on forever because so much is changing so quickly. And Zoom is kind of the big change. So a lot of people, even last week, were asking, is Zoom safe to use?
Yes.
Do you recommend that we use Zoom? What do we do? So in our blog post, and I'll get Meenakshi to talk about this a little bit, we did outline some safety measures that you should take if you are using Zoom. And right now, I mean, I'm still comfortable using Zoom. We're still using Zoom at Coacharia. I'm still using Zoom. Doesn't mean we're going to stay with it. In the spirit of transparency, I am looking at different tools. Right now, WebEx is the one that's a front runner for Coacharia, mainly because for us, when we look at tools that we use, we don't just look at, okay, here's what's possible. We look at what do we actually need. And once we have our list of what we actually need, we then look at, okay, what do we actually need and what is nice to have. And for us, there are kind of two big buckets. One is around having safe and secure meeting space where we can also record audio and video and share screen and have breakout rooms. Because for us, Zoom is what we use for our classroom experience for our learners. So Coacharia does global virtual coach training programs, and each of our, so we take a very hands-on approach. So our programs, I mean, actually the one right now, you're on screen. So yes, there is a facilitator instructor, but it's not a lecture. It really is discussion, it's sharing, it's practicing of coaching. So in Coacharia's coach training programs, everyone is required to be, dressed and on screen and audio on, because everyone speaks and or coaches during each coach training class. So for us, it's important to have the tools to have a safe, secure, but also functional in-class experience. So breakout rooms are used, for example, for kind of peer coaching practice, sometimes during the class sessions. The other thing that we use Zoom for at Coacharia is webinars. So what we're doing right now on LinkedIn Live is great, but LinkedIn Live is a very new tool. So even the fact that I can't view chat while I'm viewing the streaming tool, I have to have like 3 different windows open, is just not practical. It's not scalable, especially when you have multiple speakers or a panel. So we chose Zoom because we can have panelists, we can add and subtract panelists as we want to, we can have chat, we can have polls. It meets our needs. So long story short, for now, Coacharia is sticking with Zoom. We're taking additional precautions, which Meenakshi will go through now. But what I encourage you to do is just be smart. Just because you switch to a different tool, if you switch to a different tool, it doesn't mean it's perfect. Zoom just happens to be the one that's exploded in recent months. It just happens to be the one that people are talking about.
Yeah.
If you think about the past, decade, just Google the words data breach. Every major company is going to come up at some point in time. No one is immune. Just some companies are more visible than others and better prepared than others. I think no matter what you use, just be smart about it. And like with everything in life, prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
Absolutely.
So, with that said, Meenakshi, what are some practical steps for people who are using Zoom for meetings, for coaching sessions? What can they do to make Zoom as secure as possible for them?
Yep, certainly. So I use Zoom both for my I have a private account for my business, and so it's a basic account as they call it. So it's a free version of Zoom that I use. But a few pointers. Number one, never share your meeting room. So everyone that has a Zoom account has a meeting room. There's a link, and it's very easy to just share that link instead of actually going through the 5 steps to set up a meeting. To say, hey, come join me here. Click this link and join me for a session or a meeting. Uh, Please don't do that. Um, so make sure that you set up a separate meeting. What that does is it protects your meeting space. So let's say if you are on a one-on-one call with someone and you're using your private meeting room link, then that's protected because you're only sharing it with that one person. So please do not set up meetings using your meeting room link. Set it up as a separate meeting. Number two, do not put your meeting room links or your meeting invites in public spaces like meetup.com or put it up on Facebook. Do not do that. Please make sure that you send the meeting room link only to people who register for an event. So let's say if it's an event like a webinar, so make sure you send the link only to people who have registered, because when you register, you actually are able to validate their email address as well. Number two, if it's a one-on-one coaching session, then obviously you have already set up a time. So please again, schedule a meeting and share that link in an invite only with that person. So these are about how to handle the meeting room. The other thing is, once all those that you're expecting have joined the meeting, be it one person or many people, after that, please go ahead and lock your meeting room in Zoom. And the Zoom Help Center, and I know, Magda, we put a link to that in the blog post as well.
Yep.
Zoom has actually been very responsive to the whole COVID situation. They've put out some really good videos, and they're like micro learning video sessions, so a 1 minute video, a 2 minute video on very specific things. So please use that. I've learned a lot from that as well. So that's the other thing, locking the meeting room. And you can also control other things when you set up the meeting, such as you can mute everyone. This was another question that had come up. They said, hey, there's two of you managing this, but what if there's only one person managing this? There's a lot that if you're just one person conducting a session with many people attending, there's a lot that you can control as the host. So you can mute all participants upon entry. You can silence everyone on entry, in the sense, there's this chime that comes in. There's like a doorbell when somebody enters the meeting room. You can decide to not have that or use that because that tells you that somebody's entered the room. That's up to you. So there are a lot of things that in the control panel of the Zoom meeting room, you as a host has the ability to control. The other thing about Zoom is a lot of times you won't see the control panel pop up. You have to hover your mouse
Yeah, just move your
over
mouse a
it.
little bit and you'll see
Yes,
it.
and
Yeah.
you'll find it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sharing screens, again, you can control the ability. You can control the ability of who will be on video and who will not be. So there are so many, all of these controls, your mic, audio and video controls, and whether or not you want your participants to have audio and video. These are things you can actually set up when you set up the meeting. So when you go into Zoom and you say schedule meeting, these are the options. And so you can turn on or off. The other
Yeah.
thing that Zoom has done in response to improving their security, by default, now they have made passwords mandatory. So if you don't want a password on your meeting, you have to actually uncheck that box. The box comes checked now by default. They did security upgrades as early as, I mean, as latest as first week of April. I think like April 5th or something. I noticed this because my Zoom account got updated. I had an update come through. So they've also by default enabled waiting rooms, which means you as the host has to admit people into your meeting room, even if they registered and you had an appointment with them. So I've started doing that. So even for my one-on-one meetings, I keep the waiting room enabled. And that way it'll pop up in your participants list and you have to click on admit as a host to let them into the meeting room.
Mm.
These are some
So I have, oh,
practical
sorry.
tips. Yeah, go ahead. No.
Sorry, I just have a couple things to add. So with Zoom, that's specific to Zoom, right? All of these things we're talking about, every single tool you're going to use out there has different controls. So by no means are we saying drop what you're using. If you're using Skype and it's working for you, go for it. If WhatsApp, if you're more casual, you just want to have that, one-on-one conversation every now and then, you want to use WhatsApp, go for it. Point is that there are measures in place, some better known than others, some buried more than others. So even with Zoom, again, I've been using it for a couple of years, almost 3 years. I'm still can't find certain things, and I'm looking at the help center or I'm pinging their support team. So just poke around. So what I would encourage you to do is before you hop into whatever tool you're going to use, pick a friend, any friend, and just schedule a dummy meeting, play around with the settings, and just to see how things work. So you're not surprised later. Like with many things in life, managing expectations is half the battle. So as long as you know what to expect, you can deal with it when it happens. And that's true for meetings, webinars, for whatever. The other thing I also want to mention is if no matter what tool you are using, just reset your password right now. Just go in, reset it. If you are on Chrome or if you use a Mac and the little suggest strong password comes up, suggest strong password. It's not something you're gonna maybe remember, but right now, because all this stuff is happening, people who are going to exploit your passwords, who are going to exploit these holes in security, they're basically being invited to do it right now. So just be smart, reset your stuff, and it's just one extra little layer. Literally yesterday I read about from Zoom, the logins are now being spread around. So even if you take every single precaution under the sun, if someone has your login details, they can still log in as you and do some damage. So reset your password on Zoom, on everything, just to be safe.
And a quick note on the password, by the way. This is something my husband and I, so he works in the IT space as well. So we were talking about it. He said, always use phrases. Do not use words. Use a phrase. Make it really long. So have it at least 10 to 12 characters, if not more. And use a phrase because phrases are harder to break than words or numbers. I did not know that. Yeah. So that's a good tip as well.
That makes sense. Because when I've been setting passwords, you know how a lot of websites have that this is a strong password, this isn't?
Yeah.
When I use a phrase, it tells me it's stronger.
Yeah.
Nice.
The other tool, by the way, I also want to make one more point. It kind of relates to what you said, Magda. Determine what your business needs are, right? So, do you do one-on-one coaching? Do you do team coaching? Um, is it informal, formal? Figure that out. And if you have a Google account, you may just be able to use Google Hangouts. And it's called Meet if you have a paid like a corporate Gmail Google account. So then it's called Meet, and then Meet is like Zoom. With Google Hangouts, all of us that have Gmail accounts, the free ones, we all get Google Hangouts as well. The limit on that is up to 10 people. You can do a group meeting as well if you have under 10 people. And it's pretty much like Zoom. You can control audio, video, and things like that. Zoom or GoToMeeting, WebEx, Skype, these have more features that you can control than the basic Google Hangout has. Google Meet is similar to the rest of them.
Yeah. And you know what? Let's move on to the next topic because we can talk about this forever and ever. But be mindful of the fact that some companies are banning particular tools as a response to this. So even if you personally feel super comfortable to jump into Zoom, for example, if your client is at Google, they will not be allowed to use it. So you might have to just adjust to the tool that they use. So I think it's important also when you're setting up your coaching sessions that you have that as part of your agreement. There's actually a contracting came up as one of the questions we'll talk about later,
Yes.
but how you're going to connect digitally and where are the rules of engagement is probably a good thing to discuss before you hop on the call. Because it can be, speaking from experience, if you jump into Zoom room, so we do pure coaching at Coacharia twice a week, and coaches from around the world come in and we put them into breakout rooms to coach each other.
Right.
And this is free, by the way. So if anyone's interested, please, coacharia.com/peer-coaching. Hyphen, not dash. Anyway, whatever, the thing. And, a couple of times, my first couple of times when I wasn't expecting, 20, 30 people to show up, and I had to put them into breakout rooms, and they started requesting, I would love to coach with somebody who's just starting out, or I've already worked with, Meenakshi 10 times. I'd rather have somebody else. Once I started going through all the different requirements, like 10 minutes had passed and I still haven't started the pure coaching sessions. So people who were waiting were getting a little annoyed, and I was getting flustered because, that wasn't starting. And it's just setting the wrong kind of mood for what's going to be coaching sessions for people. So manage expectations, agree on stuff, and then and then actually do what you said you were going to do, and you'll be fine. All right, I'm going to move on because we have a lot of different stuff, and I want to get to it. Next group of questions that came up was around leveraging LinkedIn.
Yes.
And look, we won't spend too much time on this because we have a webinar coming up in 2 weeks about LinkedIn altogether. So Sonal, who is one of Coacharia's learners, but she's based in Belgium, and she was on my LinkedIn Live yesterday. So you can say hi to her if you figure out where to find my old LinkedIn Lives. I don't know how LinkedIn Live works yet. Anyway, so Sonal is a career coach, career mentor, LinkedIn aficionado, guru, whatever. She is an early adopter of LinkedIn Live, and she lives on LinkedIn. Yeah. So there's literally no person that I think knows in my circle of friends more about LinkedIn than she does. So if you go to the blog post that I put in the chat, there's a link to register for Sonal's webinar. Again, it'll be free. So please come. We'll be using Zoom. You get to see the other side of things. But yeah, even if you don't attend there, we'll also be on LinkedIn Live. Anyway, long story short, lots of stuff on LinkedIn. But we added links to the small business resources that Meenakshi mentioned in the original webinar. I don't know, I think I'm getting a little bit pissed. See, this is what happens. Just want to pause for a second because I'm trying to move between a page of content, then I have my streaming, and then I'm trying to keep an eye on chat, which isn't very active, which is fine.
I'm trying to do the LinkedIn.
Yeah, but it's hard, and it's okay. I mean, hopefully you guys aren't too annoyed with us, but we're all learning. Anyway, so LinkedIn, to make a long story short, I think it's mandatory for a small business owner or an entrepreneur. It's just where people have their profiles. I literally have not had a resume since 2010. No, more than that, because I remember there was a job that I started in 2010, and they asked for my resume, and I was like, this is going to take way too long. Is it okay if I just send you my LinkedIn profile? And at that point, LinkedIn didn't have the export as PDF, and they didn't have the export or build CV or whatever. So I literally copied and pasted, and I said this is for my LinkedIn, but yeah, that was the last time I even had a resume. So I'm not saying you shouldn't have a resume. There are different cultural things. I'm not going to advise on that. Sonal probably can. But yeah, and LinkedIn is important. It's important to show your experience. It's important to for branding. It's great for networking. Actually, I'm gonna loop into the next point we have on the blog post too, which is how do I find clients? Because LinkedIn is also where you can find clients. Yes, there are actual paid tools that LinkedIn has where you can source leads. And those are based, I believe, on the country where you are. So it may be um, easier to do things locally, a little harder to do things globally using those tools. But in general, LinkedIn is about networking, sharing content, finding your professional tribe. So, you know, at Coach Aria, we've gotten plenty of clients, not because we use some kind of paid promotion, but because they engage in the content that we're putting out there, and they came to train with us. And I've gotten, before Coach Aria, I've gotten consulting gigs because just of being on LinkedIn. So I think it's an important place to be. In the blog post that's linked, please take a look at the LinkedIn resources as well as the How Do I Find Virtual Clients section. I did add in a webinar that one of our alumni, Stefano, did. It was an excellent, excellent webinar, like seriously awesome. Stefano is a creative person by trade and by nature, and he's also a coach. So his webinar was, we started off calling it networking, but it really was about, how to use social media as a networking tool. And it touched on branding and authenticity and remaining human in the world of digital. So I highly encourage you to watch that webinar. It was truly excellent. And Stefano's awesome. Follow him on all the socials. Yeah. Sorry, brain. Meenakshi, jump in, please.
No, all valid points. And we did talk about LinkedIn quite a bit on the
We did.
EMCC webinar itself. And there were some questions which you touched upon just now. There are some of the features and tools that are country specific or geography specific. So what I based in the US may see, folks in Europe may not. It may look different or things like that. So that is true. And so uh, the one thing I would like to highlight is that right now, in the current situation, LinkedIn for small business, please make sure you follow that page and that site within LinkedIn. The advantage of following, so for example, those of you who are following Magda, you all would have received a notification in LinkedIn that Magda is live on LinkedIn. So anybody that you follow, you will get notifications, and you can actually start attending those sessions. So yesterday, I follow LinkedIn for Small Business and LinkedIn Learning, and so yesterday I got a notification, and so it was completely unplanned, and luckily for me that hour was free. So I actually attended one of their webinars, and this was organized by Gartner on how to deal with the work-life integration and balance now that almost everybody is working from home in the knowledge workspace, of course. So that's one thing I would highly encourage. The other thing that LinkedIn has done is LinkedIn has gone ahead and unlocked courses, which means that earlier what you had to pay for, or you could only get access to those courses if you were a LinkedIn Premium member, they are now free. All you have to do is sign in for a LinkedIn Club through LinkedIn Learning. It's all within LinkedIn. You'll get an email with a list of courses that are free, that are unlocked for now. And they're going to keep like 3 or 4 courses unlocked for this quarter, and then they'll switch over to another set next quarter, come 1st of July. So that's another um, avenue because it really ties
And
into what we're trying to do.
And what that's called is freemium. So look, benefit of the doubt, unconditional positive regard. Thank you, LinkedIn, for making stuff free. But let's be honest, it's free for now.
Yes,
It is an upsell opportunity, but it's also a lesson for everyone who is looking
that's
at
true.
how they embrace virtual. So it's very common practice to start with certain things for free and charge for others. Don't feel bad if you do that. So at Coach Aria, we don't do that um, for many different reasons, but that doesn't mean that that's the right or wrong way to do it. Like we have the capacity to do it for free. We are big believers in knowledge to be free. So our webinars, our YouTube channel, our blog, our ebooks, all of our Coach Aria stuff is free, and it will be. Um, but you'll see a lot of places out there where they will give you let's say the first lesson of a course, an online course for free, or a first, coaching session, and then the rest aren't. That's okay. Like, it's a sales technique. It's not dodgy. It's not. It's common practice. So don't feel bad if you do that, because that did come up in some of the questions. Yeah. Oh, and someone is asking on LinkedIn, by the way, they couldn't find LinkedIn for small business. Interesting. So if you go to the blog post that's in the chat, and if I'm clever enough, I can post it again. Yeah, no, I didn't. Cool. Okay. It's scroll up in the chat. There's a blog post. In the blog post, we added links to everything that we talked about. And we added the slides from our session last week. So you can click through any resources we had there. So hopefully you can find it. If you still can't find it, just ping me after this webinar and I will reply to you with those links. All right, so a few of these kind of areas are related, so I won't go through everything one by one, but how to convert life energy into virtual energy came up, and how do I create presence, especially with groups. So Meenakshi came up with some really cool tools that you can check out, and we talked about this quite a bit in the webinar last week.
Yes.
So please go to the blog post and take a look at it. But authenticity keeps coming up. Authenticity and managing expectations. If you're going to a client meeting, or if you're going to a coaching session that's face to face, you're not pretending to be someone you're not. So why would you pretend to be something you're not on a virtual medium? So
Absolutely.
Just be yourself. It's literally like, it's weird, it's new, but it's just another way to be. So don't be a different person when you're working virtually.
Yes.
Is social media really necessary? That was also a theme that came up in the questions. And we touched on this a little bit in terms of, the two of us are here, yet we're still having some issues managing. But this is a webinar, this is different. When you are working with a client one-on-one, hopefully you don't have other distractions. So hopefully there's nothing to manage. But in terms of being present on social media, yes, I think you need to be on social media somewhere. Just like when we talked about tools that you use in your business for virtual meetings or for anything, frankly, you need to think about, what do you actually need? And then think about, what do you actually need? And always separate these things into those actually need versus nice to have features or outcomes or whatever it is. So when it comes to social media channels, you don't need to be everywhere. It's possible you only need to be on LinkedIn. And by need, I mean people need to be able to find you. So if you, regardless of what privacy laws or social media laws your country has, believe me, when somebody is thinking about hiring you, they are going to Google you. Even if they say they haven't, they have. They've Googled you, they've looked at what comes up. And you want some things that you control to come up, right? LinkedIn has been around for a very long time. It's optimized for search engines. Therefore, chances are, if someone Googles your name, especially your name plus your job or your name plus your country, they will find your LinkedIn profile. So first of all, make sure they can find your LinkedIn profile. So that's the one social network you really should be on. And make sure that what's in there, maybe it's not super built out, but make sure that it communicates at least the basics of who you are and what you do, so that it validates your ability, your business, your whatever that you're trying to sell when your client or prospective employer Googles you, because they will Google you. So something that I do, and I haven't done this in a while, so if anyone Googles me right now, they're probably gonna be like, wow, Magda. Whatever, I'm transparent, I don't really care. I do Google myself occasionally, and since social media existed, I've been signing up for all the different social networks because frankly, it was part of my job to begin with. I was a brand manager and worked in digital marketing as my first real job at Google. Um, anyway, so I do sign up to other social networks, and the ones that I care about, I keep up to date ish at least. But what's important for me is if I Google my name, am I okay with everything that comes up? And I am. And some of these things are old, but there's nothing on there that's offensive to me. There's nothing on there that screams, Magda, this is not who you are. What the heck? So I'm fine with that. But like I said, I'm pretty transparent. I'm pretty open. What you see is what you get. But a case comes to mind when, and I won't mention even company names because then you could find this out. But there was a woman that I worked with once who's a lovely, amazing person, human being. And she happened to be dating someone who was divorced. And the ex-wife wrote some stuff on a place saying things that were untrue because she was bitter because, our relationship fell apart. And because that ex was much more active on social media, she found a site that was high in SEO rankings. This person, this colleague of mine, for basically a decade, this post came up every time you looked for her name. And it's only then that she started managing her online reputation and started joining social networks or whatever, just started taking care of what comes up when my name is Googled. But, it was too little too late at that point. I don't know what it is now. I'm not going to check, but that's a horror story because she has to now explain this situation for her personal life every time someone Googles her. Not a great place to be. So, moral of the story, yes, you need to be on social media. You don't need to be everywhere, but just, be the places where your tribe is and check your name on a regular basis, like every 6 months, every 3 months, every month, whatever. Don't obsess, just in case. And if you can do something about it, then do something about it. The end of my speech. Sorry, Meenakshi.
No, all valid
You need to
points.
cut me off, woman. I tend to ramble, you know this.
So um, there was another question on, how it's a lot of work, and I absolutely agree. I I've always been active on LinkedIn for many years now, and that was the only channel that I used from a professional perspective. Actually, probably the only social media channel that I've used for a long time. Uh, I So once I started my business, then I took that additional step of, after a while, I created a page for my business. So the key for me is to, while I'm very particular about making sure that my personal brand and my business brand, they are in sync, at the same time keeping those identities separate from a, let's say, like a separate bank account for tracking the finances, a separate email address and website to have those separate. So as part of that, I did I created a page for LinkedIn, on LinkedIn for my business as well. And I post, but then my posts are always congruent, whether I post them as Meenakshi or whether I post them as North Star. Uh, the To the point of, yes, it's a lot of work. It is. What's worked for me is I've figured out a schedule based on which I post, and then I stick to it. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. That's my primary go-to channel. Then I said, okay, I'm going to use Twitter, and I've actually found a lot of use in Twitter because I found uh, people and organizations that are in my space that I wouldn't have found. I didn't see them on LinkedIn, but I saw them on Twitter. So that was good. I started a page on Facebook, but I'm not very regular. So for me, I feel like my tribe lives on LinkedIn and maybe Twitter. So for me, the sequence is LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. I do have a YouTube channel just because I had to post a video. So I created a YouTube channel and I intend to use it. But so that's the limit of that. So I know for sure that I don't want to be on Instagram, and that's not what I'm going to use. And also, it doesn't really fit in with the line of work. Um, the one thing I attended a women's leadership conference a few months ago, and one of the speakers was a digital marketer, and she's a social media personality, like she's a blogger from North America. And one of the things she said was, and really stuck with me, always show up. Doesn't matter the number of likes or comments that you get. If you have made a commitment that you're going to make a post every day, that's a commitment that you've made. Show up no matter what. I follow that, and that's been helpful for me. So I have a schedule. So I say, okay, I'm going to make between 4 and 5 LinkedIn posts every week, and then I'm going to make maybe 3 or 4 on Twitter, Facebook, maybe 2 or 3, and I use snippets from the content that I've built. So again, what am I putting out there? Either I'm sharing something that's available as a resource for others because it's in line with what I offer as services, or I offer snippets of my own content to whet people's appetite so they can contact me in the hopes that they will, and or commentary on things that I care about, which again aligns with my values and what my business stands for. So once you figure out what you want to post and what is it that you're going to figure that out, and then figure out its schedule, and it's manageable. But it is work. It takes at least an hour a day if you think through the content that you want to put out there. For me, at least, it takes an hour a day.
And there's one. Okay, so on the blog post, again, we did have a table of different tools. As we're talking, I'm just thinking of others. So one that I really like for managing social media posting is Hootsuite.
Yes.
And I will just write that in, Hootsuite. It is free for one person. And what it allows you to do is connect different social networks. Again, there's a limit, but let's say the top ones, say LinkedIn and
Right.
Twitter are the important ones. So you can connect your social networks and you can schedule posts ahead of time. You can plan things. If people are replying to your posts, you can reply from that tool. So it's a really nice way to at least have everything in one spot instead of having to go back and forth and always be on your phone and using your thumbs. So I highly recommend using Hootsuite. They do have a really good help section as well. So if there's something you can't figure out, just click on the help section and you will see that. Before I move on from social media stuff, there was a couple questions that came up on the chat. One around, well, how can you change if you see that on your search results on social media? And how does that tie into EU's right to be forgotten? So on the second part, actually, unless you have some specific insights, I don't know what the various social networks are doing in terms of social media. I know that you are able to petition Google, for example, to remove certain things. So I would imagine that probably social media posts are also under that. However, social media posts, they're short, they're fleeting. So if you Google your name, which actually I think I might do, so I can just illustrate to you guys what I'm talking about here. When you Google your name, what comes up is the latest social media posts possibly about you, old articles, pages, whatever. So some of these things are kind of static content that have been there for a while. And I know that those kinds of pages are under the right to be forgotten. But for example, Meenakshi, you tweeted at me yesterday. It's possible that when I search myself, I will find that as the latest tweet. But if somebody else tweets at me today, that result may change. So it might not be worth it to chase every single thing if there's something you don't like. But I would also say that maybe if there's multiple things that you have to chase, then the problem maybe isn't with the people who are posting. Maybe there's something happening that you need to take a look at. I don't know. Anyway, but let me just I will try to share my screen now quickly. Sharing is easier monitors. Actually, what did you application window? Never mind. Sorry.
Yeah.
You guys, like I said, I'm still learning. Where is it? Magda, Walczak, Google. So Meenakshi, can you tell me if you can see my screen, my search results?
Yes.
Yeah, awesome, sweet. Okay, so when I do my little homework, I always use incognito window. So I don't know what that's called in like other browsers. I use Chrome and it's an incognito window. The reason I do that is because I'm logged into my browser otherwise, and Google results will be different depending on your behavior. So I want to see kind of in general, what will people see? So I Googled myself just now, and I haven't done this in at least a year, you guys. So I'm not practicing what I preach. But what's coming up so far, so good. I mean, I did say LinkedIn, check it out. The number one thing, like I've been active on the line for a couple decades, yet my LinkedIn profile, where I'm not updating very well, is the first one. So it just shows you that you gotta be on LinkedIn. Okay, what else comes up is Coacharia blog posts that I've authored, my page on Coacharia, on the team. On the right, this is kind of cool. This is new for me, so I'm happy. I don't know why this particular picture, because it's quite old, but I wrote a book. It's called Sailor's Tale, and Sailor's my doggy. He's a rescue. So Sailor's Tale is about a dog who got rescued. It's a children's book. It's on Amazon. You should buy it for your kids. You should, because Sailor's amazing. Anyway, I think it's a good book. But looks like Google likes that too. So awesome. Then Google thinks that's what's important is a bunch of pictures of me. So that's awkward, but hey, check out.
You're on Instagram too, right?
I am on Instagram too. I'm on Instagram for personal stuff.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't do like again, like I don't have different personalities, but I save Instagram for things that Magda cares about versus I feel like other social networks I mix a bit more.
Yeah.
What else comes up? Crunchbase. Crunchbase is like a startup networking thing slash not networking directory of startups. So I'm coming up there. My Twitter's coming up. I used to work at a company called Base, so it looks like my author page comes up. My old website, which I haven't touched in years, and my Medium and Facebook. So this one I'm okay with because everything I do is public. I don't really care. My website I haven't updated. So there's a couple of things in here that are flags for me that, yeah, I should probably go and update those things, but nothing that's screaming, hey, Magda, this is an issue. So that's what I do. I also would click on image search to see if there's, I mean, the image search. There's other Magdas in the world, so not every image is going to come up is going to be me, actually. So I don't really care, I suppose. But yeah, do this kind of homework, just double check things. And, you know, the things that came up, like the Crunchbase profile, for example, that is something I can affect. I can hop in there and I can edit that. That's something I own. For other things like the old profile at Base where I used to work, I don't have access to that anymore. That's, you know, 7 years ago. So I can't update that. And the company has since changed names. They're bought by Zendesk. So even if I wanted to change that, good luck tracking down someone who has access to this old site that, you know, it no longer really is active. So it's possible that some of these things just will stay. But as long as you're true to yourself and put out there what you believe in, this shouldn't be an issue, right?
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. I mean, actually, what else should we touch on? I feel like all the other things that came in as questions are quite small. So you guys can head over to the blog post I linked to get those answers. I don't want to read all of them out. I think contracting was a theme. And my view is that for contracts, a contract is a contract. So I don't think you should be changing anything dramatic in there. I think adding some things around rules of engagement, like we will use the tool that your company suggests, or we will use Zoom or whatever. And I will seek your permission if I want to record the session, things like that. What else do you think?
I wanted to bring, I think you and I talked about this a little bit when we first met before the webinar, last week's webinar, and we may have touched upon it. So there was question around pricing, whether because you're doing coaching virtually, should it be priced lower? We did say probably not. The only point I wanted to sort of remind everyone about is if your initial pricing in your traditional face-to-face brick and mortar shopfront style was included um, your other costs such as rent for the space and things like that, you may want to take that off because that's no longer applicable. But other than that, there is no definitely neither of us thinks that there is any rationale in reducing your price just because you've gone virtual.
Hmm.
Because what you're doing, what you bring to the table, your presence, all of that is still retained and maintained. So there is
Yeah.
no and because just because you're delivering it in a different medium is no reason for reduction in value of what you're bringing to the table. So I just wanted to bring that up again and say that if there are
Hmm.
elements of pricing that come from your costs which are no longer applicable, yes, in the spirit of being honest about it, you can take those off. That's all.
I'm gonna add two buts to this, unfortunately.
Go ahead.
Okay, my first but is um yes, those costs, if they're substantial, maybe you want to change the pricing.
Sure.
But if the costs aren't that substantial, I think it could backfire badly. Let's say you're charging $100 an hour, and now you're able to charge $95 an hour. I think that might be kind of weird for a client to be like, okay,
That's
so it's
true.
$5 difference. Like, so just use your judgment as to how substantial is the decrease. That's first of all. Second of all, the other but I wanted to add is for many of us, this is how we do work.
Yes.
For many of us, this is how we do work right now, but don't intend to do it like this later. So even with our virtual coach training programs, put in perspective, we had one. So we do some face-to-face programs only in India because that's where the company started, and just the market there demands that we do that. So only in India, we do regular face-to-face coach training programs. And our last program in Bangalore had about, I think, 18 people who were enrolled in that one. And then they had one weekend session, and then the whole lockdown happened, and it was actually quite hard to convince some of the people to shift to a virtual program.
Mm.
They want to do face to face. They're happy to wait until the lockdown is over. So we started a virtual cohort for those who want to continue, and then the rest will just rejoin in the next face to face opportunity. So, like I said before, like we price the same no matter what because it's just it doesn't make sense for us for Coacharia. But if you, let's say, have substantial brick and mortar costs and you change your pricing right now substantially enough that it's warranted to change it,
Yes.
and then you go back to higher pricing, it's much
Yeah.
harder to increase rates than it is to decrease rates. So just be
True.
mindful of that, and think long term, not just during the lockdown.
No, absolutely agree with you. I'm so glad you brought that up. Um, I was going to say one more thing on that, and I forgot about the
That's okay. Five, good
pricing.
team.
um, oh gosh, it escaped
It's
my
okay.
brain.
If it
It'll
comes
come
to you,
back.
it comes to you.
Yeah.
Um, Look, so I don't have much else to say. The blog post is there. If anyone has additional questions, ping us or just go to the blog post and add a comment. Our intention is that this will be a living blog post. I will get notified because I'm the author of that one every time that there's a comment. So what I promise you all that I will do is if there's new questions that come up, I will consult Meenakshi and then I will update the blog post accordingly with the answer. So you will hopefully see zero comments, but the blog post is going to get longer and longer. And I will also add in a video of this session, and I'll tag some points in time where different answers come up. And I will also add the EMCC recording of the original session once I get that from EMCC. So, I mean, I think this is going to be a cool resource. Makes me happy. It's fun to talk to Meenakshi. So
Likewise. Thank you.
I mean, actually, any closing thoughts?
um, I guess doing work virtually, I see this as an opportunity. Yes, I'm a little bit biased because I've done this for a long time. I've done a lot of my work virtually, even when I was employed full time. And for me, it's an opportunity because it opens up, not only from a pure business commercial perspective, but I think it just opens up this world where you can connect with anyone no matter where they are, no matter where you are, and you can actually build connections. And I'll just say this example, that I've met so many interesting, and really accomplished individuals just on LinkedIn, for instance. I found Coach Arya on LinkedIn. So there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of value that's out there just waiting to be discovered. So for me, working virtually, I'm really trying to back off from that label, because
Just working.
it's just working, exactly. And especially the knowledge workspace, work is becoming less and less of a place you go to, and it's becoming more and more of an activity, which is why, to me, it's not about work life balance, but it's about work life integration. Because it's just another activity. Yes, it pays your bills, but it is an activity at the end of the day, and how you fit it in with everything else that's happening in your life. So it's no longer a place. So you don't go to work, you just work. And so when I look at it that way, and especially as I'm looking at entering the professional coaching space in a more permanent fashion, to me, this opens up the world is my market, and I feel like it gives me the opportunity to reach people that I truly care about, the demographic that I truly care about, and gives them the opportunity to connect with me. So, for example, the Coach Area marketplace, something like that wouldn't be feasible or viable if it wasn't for the kind of setup that we do have.
Yeah.
The other thing is, for example, and you know about this, Magda. So I'm hosting this webinar series through North Star in May, and at least 50% of the speakers, they're all in my network, but at least 50% of the speakers, I've only met them on Zoom, and I've only met them in the last, I don't know, 6 to 12 weeks, and we've hit it off. We've had Zoom conversations. We've figured out what we want to do, and we're all coming together to do this webinar series. So I think it's just fantastic. To me, this is an
Mm.
opportunity. That's all.
Yeah. Actually, I feel like we're old friends, and I've never been in the same room as you.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, we're living proof
Isn't that
that
crazy?
it's a big. Yes, it is. It is.
Oh
And
my gosh.
so yeah, so those boundaries, it's truly becoming boundaryless. And that's, to me, is a beautiful thing. That's all.
I love that. I love that. Um, so we'll wrap up, but I do want to just do a shameless plug because it's my channel. So please head over to the blog post. Like I said, we're very happy to keep going and assist anybody who's going through this virtual thing. But if any of you are interested in coach training programs, please shoot me an email directly or just use the little contact form on Coach Arya's website, or click on the little chat icon on Coach Arya's website, and myself or one of my team members will be happy to help you. We do have a couple programs starting that are ideal for European time zones. So we will be very happy if any of you want to get coaching credentials. We are accredited with EMCC at the senior practitioner level, and we are also accredited by ICF, which is global, and by CCE for the board certified coach credential in the US. But EMCC is the audience for this. So we love EMCC. They're great. We just got our audit done. So we've streamlined our EMCC requirements quite a bit, which is awesome. So that's my shameless plug. But we do, in addition, that's our business. But in addition to coach training programs, we do a lot of content. So if you're a practicing coach, if you're credentialed, come to us. There's a lot of free stuff that we do, lots of blog posts, lots of videos. We do webinars several times a week at this point, for different levels of coaching. So there's a webinar series on the business side of coaching where we have guests like Meenakshi on topics like this. There's the coaching colloquium where we invite experts on something, credentialed usually, experts on something in the world of coaching, where it's a presentation and discussion on that area, and they're one-off webinars. We do the advanced coaching series, which is ran by Ram, my partner at Coacharia, and the thought leader, the coach side. I'm the business side. So Ram is incredible, to say the least, and wealth of knowledge. So in the advanced series, we assume a level of coaching knowledge. So it's not for beginners. I mean, it can be, but it's good if you have some coaching knowledge, where Ram engages in discussion around really interesting topics in coaching. So right now we are talking about neuroscience in coaching for the next few sessions with some really cool neuroscientist guests. Yeah, it's super interesting to me, at least. We did a whole series on systemic coaching. We did one on Eastern philosophies in coaching. We did one, actually, Meenakshi was a guest on the Agile one. So lots of interesting topics in coaching. And last but not least, actually not last, so many things. We do a mastery in leadership through coaching competencies series, where one of master level coaches, of whom Coacharia trained around 40, yes, good job us. One of our master level coaches from our community comes in and does a presentation on his or her area of expertise and ties it in directly into different coaching competencies. So that series, I would say, is very much ongoing coaching training, ongoing coaching education. So I highly encourage everyone who's interested in education side of coaching, please come to those. What else? And we're launching a new webinar series next week. So on the 23rd, actually at this exact time, on Thursday mornings, Leah Black, who is an expert in working with youth. She's a lifelong youth mentor and coach. Leah is launching a series on parenting. So every single week, she's going to have coaches, mentors, and parents and educators and people who are awesome and know about kids and young people. She's going to have them on a panel around different topics and tying that back into coaching. So the series title is Parenting with a Coaching Mindset. And this first session on the 23rd of April is around parenting teens. So if you have teenagers in your life, please come. It'll be an interesting panel. Again, free to attend. Instructions for registration are on coacharia.com/events. I'll stop talking now. Meenakshi, please tell us your shameless plug. What do you do for a living? And if somebody wants to hire you, what can they hire you to do?
Wow. Thank you for that. So for me, I'm the founder and principal of North Star Solutions and Services, which is an organizational agility and workplace effectiveness consultancy. I'm physically based in the suburb of in a suburb of Northern Virginia on the East Coast. But I'm a boundaryless organization, so a business. So I'm open to working with folks from practically any time zone because I think I figured that out. So I just need to plan my day and I can figure it out. So the time zones that will work best for me are, of course, the US, Europe, and India, and actually even a little bit of Australia and New Zealand, which actually brings me.
Oh, what do you do?
Oh yeah, what do I do? I know, right? So I'm a bit of a Swiss Army knife. I've been that in my entire career. So my experience is in healthcare, health IT services, and primarily I consider myself a T-shaped professional. So I have a lot of varied interests and also experience in diverse industries and in different roles, up and down all levels of hierarchy. I've always, I think more often than not, I worked directly with business owners, regardless of what my title or position was in the company. So I've gained a lot. I feel like I've aged in dog years in my professional life, so I've gained a lot of experience in that. So my specialties are organizational transformation initiatives, any kind of transformation, be it installation or of a new software. So you have to manage the whole people, product, process piece of it. And I also love to work with individuals, specifically women, ethnic minorities, and speakers of English as a second language. So those are my specific demographic interests, if you will. And so, in fact, just yesterday, I put a listing up on the Coacharia marketplace
Yay.
So I'm a learner coach.
Marketplace.coacharia.com.
Acharya.com. Yes, absolutely. And it's a cool place. I found so many people that I feel like I could connect with and learn from. So I've listed myself there as a, personal agility and workplace effectiveness coach. That's something that I can do even now because I've done this for a while. My entire career spans about more than 2 decades. So anyway, so my the other specialty is cross-cultural communication, cultural intelligence, and collaborating in a virtual workspace. That's something that I've done for a long time, and I actually enjoy doing. So
Which
keeping
is
all
why
the
you're here in this webinar.
yes, absolutely,
You
and
actually are an expert.
I really enjoy it. I think for me, physical location really doesn't matter. And
Mm.
I think it goes back to my childhood days when I used to have. I still remember. I at least had like 2 or 3 pen pals within the country. So it was
That's cool.
interesting back home in India. Yeah. Yeah. So the other thing I do want to mention, again, in the list of all the free stuff that Magda talked about. So I'm hosting my first big event for my business in May. It's a webinar series titled "The Fourth Industrial Revolution and the Future of Work." So 4IR and the Future of Work. There's a lot happening. The fourth industrial revolution is underway. You can see there's, digital. We live in a digital economy, and there's digital. It's pervasive, and there's all this talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning and all of that. What does that mean for us from a workplace perspective? How will our jobs look like in the future? Now, I feel like with the pandemic, it's given us that it's sort of forced us to stop and think about things, right? So I wanted to use this opportunity to build this platform for thought leadership in organizational agility from a global inclusive perspective, and take into account human-centered design, agile, lean principles, and just view this from that lens. So our panel of speakers, we'll have different sessions throughout the week. It's from the 11th of May to the 16th of May. And again, it covers different time zones. So we have sessions that people from all over the world can attend,
Right.
and these are free. The panel of speakers, we come from 6 different countries and 7 different time zones. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, me too. So we will, actually, maybe after this, make sure you comment on the recording of this video so anyone who's watching it can see it. But yeah,
Yes,
please, anyone who's watching live or later, connect with us. We're here. And by the way, I just want to say something too. I jokingly said this was shameless promotion, but I don't know. I don't want to sound negative because part of this new world we live in is being comfortable talking about yourself.
yes, yes,
So self-promotion is necessary. We're all here to grow our businesses. So you should
absolutely.
not feel shame about self-promotion ever. Just be kind about it, be nice, be
And
authentic,
uh, you
all those
know,
great
uh,
things.
I totally agree with you, and I think that the more you collaborate, and I'm seeing that, especially as a solopreneur, I'm seeing that the more you reach out and you collaborate. So for me, the operating principle, and particularly so for this webinar series, has been collaboration over competition. And I feel like
Mm,
when you think about it like that, the pie just grows in size. So there is enough for
yeah,
everyone because you as you just can't reach everyone, right? So there's enough work, enough opportunity for everyone. It's just a matter of finding it. So for me, this association with Coach Arya started even before I became a learner coach. And so it's very special because to me, this is an example of collaboration over competition. So
yeah, totally agree.
thank you.
Cool. I think we'll finish now because it's been over an hour. Wow,
Yep,
that time
yep.
flies, hey? Really great to see you. Thank you, everyone who
Thank
was
you.
watching us live and who watches this recording later. Please feel free to leave your comment. Feel free. Please leave your comment. We want to see them. And we hope to see you at the next inevitable LinkedIn Live because something tells me Meenakshi will be back here another month or so. Yeah. All
All
right.
right. Thank you very
Thanks,
much, Magda.
everyone.
And thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.